It is now the morning after having found out my dad's DNA test results, and here was the epiphany as I was waking up. Here's what I was thinking. First of all, I got to show off my new Johnny Cash t-shirt. I'm so proud of it. But specifically, here's what's in my mind about the DNA test thing. Think about this. As we now know, my dad's DNA is pretty much just the same ball of wax. 99% Northwestern European, right? So he's something like a quarter German, which would be go back to our last name, and then British, English, Scottish, Irish, that's 99% of who he is. And then I guess some people have been saying maybe that 0.5% of South Asian is Gypsy. And then of course the Native American is also maybe shown up as 0.5%. So it's pretty much, we've got a guy who's pretty much just 100% European. Now think about this, and this is what I've been thinking about. Throughout the course of history, arguably half of my DNA, everything on my dad's side, just kind of floated up there in Europe. At the top of the globe, they just kept marrying people who were also 100% Northwestern European, all the way throughout time. Then they arrive in America somewhere in the 1700s, it looks like, from what we can tell. When they get here in the 1700s, they continue only to marry other people who have that same English, Scottish, Irish, German, and a little bit of French. They never stray from that. And then apparently somewhere along the mix, someone married someone who way up the line was part Native American. But that was a long time ago. So we can see the consistency. These people continued to marry people who were like themselves ethnically. Now contrast that to my mom. As you know, you've seen the test results with my mom. She is one of the most mixed people that you can know, because she pretty much encompasses all the ethnicities and races for the most part, as far as all the major things. Of course, she thought she was Mexican and Italian, half of each. The DNA test results show the Mexican side is completely true, but then in addition to being a tiny bit Italian, just a tiny, like 4%, she's 8% Greek, she's like 15% Jewish, 14.5% Middle Eastern. She is Spanish as well. But we see all these things and you think, okay, well, look at her history. All of her ancestors throughout time, instead of being like my dad here, just floating at the top of the globe, and then even when they get to America, they just still continue to marry people just like them. My mom's story is the opposite. Instead of staying the same, it's like this: they were in a different part of the globe, so coming in from Spain and Italy, but then there's also the Middle East and there's Northern Africa as well, because my mom is a little bit African, and she's 0%, Northwestern European like my dad is. The most obvious part of her that's European would be the Spanish. But as far as anything Irish or English or Scottish or Norwegian or Dutch, my mom's nothing of that. So my dad's basically the opposite of my mom as far as ethnically. So my mom's ancestors, whereas my dad was like this, my mom's ancestors were like this. So they dipped down in Africa. Then come Jewish people through Spain and Italy, and then Greek, and then isn't that fascinating how that happened? And my theory, and I'm definitely interested in hearing you kind of fill in the gaps on my theory, which could easily be flawed, but this is where I'm at with it right now. Where I'm thinking in my mind with this is, with all my dad's ancestors being on the top of the globe, people just weren't intermixing as much ethnically. People who wanted to go all the way up to the top of the globe to England or Scotland, they had to really want to be there. Where it was easier for people to hang out closer toward Italy and Spain, there was a lot of going on in commerce, and there was just a lot more going on. So if you were down there, you're obviously much more likely to be more ethnically mixed than someone who is at the top of the globe, hanging out in England, Scotland, and around that area. So I think it's fascinating that my mom and my dad basically are on opposite ends of the spectrum, as far as they really don't share any of the same kind of DNA as far as ethnicity goes. But more importantly, there's a reason for that, because my dad's ancestors, they stuck only basically with each other, and my mom's ancestors didn't. Even going to her own parents, her dad, who we thought was 100% Italian, even he married someone he knew was 100% Mexican. So even then, he had the mentality of, I'm Italian, but I'm a lot of things. And so he marries someone he knows that's not part of the same general ethnic, background there. But then every one of my dad's side of the family, and of course they lived in the southeast here, where, and for the most part, it's easier to keep that Northwestern European mix because that's a lot of what we are here down in the South. So then you come to me, and you've got someone who now is half of that British, German-ish stuff, and then half of everything that's mixed. And then you get me, who a lot of people are saying I am pretty much a perfect mix of that, arguably just German-Spanish mix when you dumb it all down. Please tell me your thoughts on this. Do you agree on my theory about why my dad, his DNA is so consistent, 99% Northwestern European, and then my mom is just so mixed? Central American, Spanish, Sephardic Jewish, Middle Eastern, Greek, a little bit Italian, and a little bit of African. There's a reason her ancestors mixed so much ethnically, because geographically where they were in history. And then even when they got to America, they were already so mixed. Why try to find someone who was the same thing as them? Who cares? But with my dad's, they just stayed consistent. It was almost part of their culture to continue to marry within their same culture. Just like with my mom's side of the family, it was almost in with their culture to marry outside of it or to mix other things in. Who cares? I think it was ultimately a geographical and cultural leaning on both sides that led them to be the way they were. Either so consistent, 99%, or just completely mixed. Please tell me your thoughts on this. This is another Christmas present that you can give me. Comments. Thanks.